welcome to In the Studio. And my name is Eunah Cho, and today we're going to talk about conducting classical music. And our guest today is conducting master's student Jonathan Spatola-Knoll. So thanks for coming on the show today,
Thank
Jonathan.
you for having me.
Yeah, so why don't we just get started right away? Can you tell us how you got into conducting? What was your start in conducting and what inspired you?
Well, I approached conducting in a way that's a little more common in Europe than in the United States. I started more as a pianist, coaching singers, coaching opera, coaching choruses, and it's what I did before I came to UCD. So when I did come here as a musicology PhD student, I played the piano for the big oratorio production of Elgar's Dream of Gerontius, and I started conducting as an assistant conductor through that. It's kind of challenging me trying to figure out doing 2 degrees at once, but I feel like musicology and conducting do complement each other quite well. Like I consider it important for me not just to have my interests as a performer and as a researcher overlap, but also as a conductor, if you approach things in like maybe a more analytical, musicological, historical way, it can also inform what you're doing.
But does that basically mean you had no idea you were actually going to go into conducting when you came to UC Davis, and you just thought that you're going to be a musicologist and maybe just stay in academia? Or
I thought that what I would do is I would do a little bit of conducting, possibly because I had mentioned that I was interested before I came, but my intention was to come here and focus on musicology and on collaborative piano, which is basically the fancy way of saying that, oh, I play the piano, but I don't play by myself.
Right, you're going to accompany
others.
people,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, or play in chamber ensembles and opera rehearsal.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So then, I mean, who basically got you into conducting, or was that something you walked into yourself as you started to realize you wanted to pursue conducting?
I'd done a little bit as an undergraduate. It wasn't my main thing. I had too many things going on. I played piano, I played violin, I had an undergraduate thesis to write. But my first experiences as a conductor, I was working with D. Kern Holloman in the music department. Recently retired, but he's still going to be conducting the graduate studies commencement ceremony on Thursday.
Right, which will have already happened by the time this
Yeah,
airs.
of course.
Yeah, so happy graduation to all of those undergrads who are graduating
graduate
on Thursday.
students.
Oh, and graduate students. Is it only the orchestra that they have playing, or is it like band and everyone else?
Well,
too?
Somebody involved with graduate studies is retiring this year, and his last wish was to have the orchestra play at the graduation for his division.
Yeah. So Kern Holloman is going to be directing that. Is he the one who mentored you when you started out as a conductor?
Yes, he did when I first started. But at the same time, here, I also have worked with 2 of the other conducting professors, Jeffrey Thomas and Christian Baldini.
Is that like the normal route for an aspiring young conductor? Like, do they always have a professor or mentor who tells them exactly how things are done? Or, I mean, I don't even know. Like the conductors' names that I know of, like Claudio Abbado and Leonard Bernstein, like I don't know who their teachers were. Like for me, it almost seems like they just sprung out of the ground as these like geniuses who knew how to conduct magically. But do they all seem to have like this? Is there like a pedagogical tradition in conducting?
Not. Well, I'm sure some people do have certain traditions. Like you see some people who claim to like teach in the style of Ilya Musin or in such and such a person. But really, there's so many different ways to conduct that as a conducting student, it's very helpful to have people there who can make recommendations on things that you can try out that might make your technique clearer or might help you express something. But at the same time, you see so many different perspectives, not just in terms of how you wave the stick, but in terms of even what you want a piece to sound like. There's no one way of doing it. So when you have all these people telling you, oh, you should try this, you should try that, you have to some extent, there's so many valid opinions that you have to pick and choose what's most important to you and your personality as a conductor and musician.
Yeah. So you're also studying with Christian Baldini because he's the orchestra conductor,
Yeah.
and then Jeffrey Thomas, he directs the choir, the university chorus.
Yes.
So how would you, I mean, make a distinction between their different styles? You know, as two very close conductors that you have firsthand experience working with. You know, what kind of differences do you observe?
Well, to some extent, it's a difference in repertoire, actually. Even though both Professor Thomas and Professor Baldini have had a lot of broad musical experiences, Professor Baldini is a composer as well, and one of his emphases is to do 20th and 21st century repertoire that is not necessarily played quite as often.
It's very new and atonal music.
Yes, yes, possibly. I mean, obviously he's not restricted to that, whereas Jeffrey is not just more specialized in choral music, but as the director of American Bach soloists in San Francisco, he tends to focus his career more upon like 18th century music, for instance.
Like Baroque.
Yes, Baroque, like
music around Bach's period.
Bach, Handel, etc.
So a lot more tonal and that style. But I mean, do you think that their conducting styles, because I'm sure that when you direct a choir, it's very different from when you're directing an orchestra because you're operating with different instruments, right?
Yes.
So what are the sort of distinctions that they try to emphasize with you when they're explaining conducting?
Well, I wouldn't say either will say, oh, this is exactly how you conduct an orchestra, and this is exactly how you conduct a choir. I mean, clearly the skills overlap, but it's just singers might need different things than instrumentalists. Like in a lot of instrumental music, if you've got like 100 people playing something very complicated, to get everybody to line up, oftentimes you need a lot of precision. I mean, but with a chorus, like when somebody begins a note when they're singing, it doesn't usually have the same precise beginning and attack that like somebody playing a loud note on a trumpet might, for instance. So.
Oh, right, because you have to take in the breath and it's like producing the sound from your own lungs.
So you're thinking more. It's like you're thinking even more about the shape, and so a chorus doesn't necessarily need as much precision in that way, and that doesn't mean you don't want it to be precise, but if you give them the wrong sort of energy, sometimes it can make it harder to sing. Whereas, so just certain types of things that you might do with an orchestra, you might just need to put them more gently in some choral situations. Like it's especially tough though as a singer in some ways because your instrument is your body. So it's like if I'm playing my viola and it's not very ergonomic, I just feel a little tired. But if I'm trying to sing and I've got a conductor who's maybe trying to get me to sing very, very aggressively with a lot of tension, it might actually hurt.
Right, yeah. I know, I mean, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be using your voice or like even a wind or brass instrument. I always wonder, because like when you play violin, it's like you're a little more flexible and you can make a sound, though it might not necessarily be what they're asking for, but you can be careful with yourself, but sometimes it's easy to strain yourself. But I mean, also when I notice conducting, like choral conducting, maybe it's just the few people I saw, like their gestures are a lot more gentle or it looks more fluid as opposed to like orchestral conducting where it's like, I don't know, what is the beat that you follow, you know, when you have a baton and is it the ictus or the the ictus?
We call it the ictus. It's like supposedly it's supposed to be inevitable. Doesn't mean that
inevitable.
Well, it's supposed to feel inevitable. Like as an orchestra musician, I mean, you don't want there to be ambiguity of where it's coming. Like unless you are expecting something like that.
Is that something that you like? Is that a skill that you have to hone and try to? Because I mean, I don't think it comes naturally. You know, I see people who think that you just stand up in front of an audience and wave your arms in relative time, and people will know how to follow you. But sometimes it's really hard to follow a conductor when they're not that good. But
well, I mean, just put it this way: like if you're just like playing a new piece for the first time and I wave my arm around like this, it's like, oh yeah, this is about in time. Then you're like, well, okay, where's the beat? Mm-hmm. But if I do something more like this, it might be a little bit more natural to get everything together. Mm-hmm. Then again, you also, if you see YouTube videos or go to a concert or something, you'll sometimes see conductors who might get things started, like they set the tempo, and then they'll maybe not show as obvious beats, and they'll try to nudge people in the right directions. Like there might be a certain sound or an accent they want to bring out in a certain way, and they'll show that. And sometimes as a conductor, like if you show too much information for the beat and nothing else, yeah, people are going to play together probably, but it means that it's a little harder sometimes to really make the smaller gestures have more effect.
So, I mean, when you watch a conductor, then it's not necessarily the flashy guy who does a lot of like jumping around and waving his arms.
Yeah.
Like it could be the more subtle cues.
It could be, but I think one of the very intangible things about conducting is that part of the job isn't just keeping everything together and like, okay, this is how the music sounds, but like ideally you want to be able to communicate something to your players, like something like this like more, but that's something to your players, and then in a way they can emotionally communicate to the audience. Like being a conductor is kind of like being an actor in a way. You have to somehow figure out a way to make the orchestra feel excited
like you
in
have
some
to
way.
believe them.
Yeah,
Right?
you have to. It's like in a way you have to be convincing emotionally and in terms of how you want something to sound, and you need to get the orchestra on your side with that, and then have them convince the audience.
Right, and that takes a lot of trust in a conductor too, right? I mean,
Yes.
you know, when the conductor doesn't look confident, then you feel less confident that maybe we're not taking the music in the right direction, or
Yeah.
maybe we should play it a different way, and there's some resistance. But
Yeah, it's one of those things that like you have to, as a conductor, you also don't want to be working against your orchestra. I mean, sometimes there might be like a mistake or something that you might want to correct, and you know those are generally not very controversial, but if you're trying to take something at completely the wrong tempo or all over the place, they're going to work against you. Like, and as a conductor, like one of the things you want to ideally do is prepare so you, like it's like at the first rehearsal, you don't necessarily have like, oh, it has to sound this way, oh, no matter what. That's not an attitude that's going to work, because your orchestra and every musician in the orchestra has something to contribute. And chances are with so many people, because it's such a collaborative thing, it's not going to exactly line up with what you're trying to do at the first rehearsal, even if you have the best conducting technique in the world.
right.
That said, as a conductor, you do want to go into the first rehearsal being an authority on the music. You want to know how you want it to sound, but be willing to adapt and take inspiration from your players. Like you don't want to, it's like you don't want to be a dictator, but you don't want to, you don't want
Right.
to, you don't want to not have that sort of artistic authority.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's kind of what I'd imagine parenting would be like almost, right? Like you don't want to be really, really mean to them or anything. You don't want to be
Yes.
the dictator, but you don't want to be too friendly with them. Otherwise, they'll just kind of be like, I don't have to take them seriously or
Yes.
anything. And it's a very tricky dynamic. But I mean, I think if you choose to be a conductor, it seems like, you know, you tend to evoke a certain kind of charisma
Yeah.
or confidence that people will follow. Or
I know I would like to maybe compare it to when I'm teaching a class like music fundamentals, like in a way, like when you're teaching, oftentimes you feel like, okay, you don't want to necessarily be too downright horrible with your class in
Right,
terms
yeah.
of grading. You don't want to be that person, but you still want to have high standards. Just like in an orchestra, it's kind of similar in that you don't want to be too negative when things go wrong, but at the same time, you need to somehow gently insist that the work gets done and gets done well.
And there's also that balance of, you know, when you're working with a group, the level of that group also should affect the way you work with them, right? If there are
Yes.
certain degrees of like competency, you know, with different ensembles.
Yes, but it's dangerous to do too much of that, because it's like, oh yeah, I'm conducting a group that isn't as experienced. I'm going to conduct everything like this. You know, every group, no matter what, is capable of doing something more than what they have. Even beginners, if you can inspire them to do something very musical, even if it might be a little sloppier than the people who've been at it for 20 years.
Right.
So it's like of course you want to give the group what they need in terms of, okay, the tempo is going to be like this here. All right, this is a tricky transition. I need to show this. Oh, the bassoon is going to be, it sometimes has a hard time entering here. I'm going to make sure to cue them. Of course you want to do all those things, but you still want to you still want them to, if you're working with a group that maybe isn't experienced, you still want them to rise to your level rather than you to go down to them. Everyone, it's like when you've got students in a class, like everyone, even the people who don't think they're as good or have less confidence, everyone is capable of gaining something and contributing.
Yeah, that's a very positive way of looking at, sometimes it's easy to get jaded, I guess, when you hear groups and it's like, it doesn't sound good enough, but you just take it for granted because it's like they're not at a level, so you don't feel like you should demand more of them. But I guess everyone does have potential to create something really, really nice.
I just think that it's so easy to make it into a technical exercise. Like you go to rehearsal, it's like, oh, all these things aren't quite right. Let's fix this. Let's play this over and over again. But it's like, yes, you need to do some of that, but I like to try to make it a little more exciting. And chances are, if there's something that goes a little wrong, your orchestra kind of knows it. Like you stop them instead of saying like, oh, that and that is wrong. Let's correct it. You might say, okay, let's do this again, but let's also focus on like maybe giving our phrases a little more shape, or maybe having more contrast between the loud and the soft. And so they get that practice having another chance at something, but they also are thinking about this greater musical or emotional purpose. And I think that's what's exciting for a lot of people when they're playing. Like I think many people who play in orchestra or any sort of group, they're doing it unless they're making a living out of it, and even if they are making a living on it, they're doing it because they love it in some way.
Right.
And the more you encourage that, the better. Like if you just make it into a purely technical exercise as a conductor, that's just not always completely
right. It should be something that's positive and something you truly love, not
yes.
just for the sake of making some kind of noise at the right time.
Yes,
and coordinating it with other people.
Not that you shouldn't get those things
right.
right.
Exactly.
But it's I think it's related to live performance too. There's a reason we don't just put all our Beethoven scores into the computer and have the computer play it. It's
right.
because an orchestra and a conductor will find some way to not just give maybe a new perspective on a piece, but there's a certain energy to a great live performance that you can have in the actual hall that you don't have in you certainly wouldn't have if a computer produced the sound by itself. And you also don't really quite have if you're listening to a recording.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the human element, right? And it seems very organic, especially when you can see the actual people who are creating these really gorgeous sounds. And that's why going to performance is always really exciting.
Well, I mean, it's like if you think about it, if like you look online, like there are hundreds and hundreds of performances on that you can buy of Beethoven's Fifth. It's like, why do we need so many performances of that? It's like no one can possibly listen to all of these unless they're a complete fanatic. Right. But you have to keep in mind that like performance is a living, breathing thing. Like no matter, even if it's the same orchestra doing the same piece 8 nights in a row, it's always going to be a little different.
Right.
And it's like this. So Beethoven's Fifth Symphony, like the artifact is the score in a way, but it's still like as a piece of music and as an experience. I'm big into the idea of music as an experience. It's still alive. Like it's like you can imagine that the piece is kind of changing in some ways, or at least is a little different each time it's performed. But every recording is just kind of a snapshot of the piece's life.
Right. And the conductor, I mean, I guess the conductor's role is to kind of guide the musicians through it, not necessarily control it all, but at least like lead in a way, and everyone should follow in a.
I mean, you see conductorless orchestras, for instance, and I wouldn't say that I have any really particular reservations about it, but still, a conductor can be very important. Can be very important or useful because a conductor can not just both unifies kind of the musical impression that's going on and kind of nudges things in a certain direction, in the right direction. Like somebody might be like, okay, like we've got the New York Philharmonic. Why do they need a conductor when they've played Beethoven's Fifth Symphony 1,000 times?
Right, and they're all supposed to be the best musicians around, right? Like they should be able to stay in time together.
Yeah, exactly. They're perfectly capable of that. They're perfectly capable of it sounding good. But you have a conductor there, and like the conductor is the one who channels the energy, the musical energy, and creates a more unified performance between everybody. And also I think part of the appeal of playing in an orchestra is that you do get to work with different conductors who might have a different perspective. Like there's some conductors who might be obsessed with like really precise, incisive rhythms. There's some who might be obsessed with like the sound world and like blending everything. And there might be some who are more interested in just like putting together the big picture, like as in like kind of,
and a little more flexible with what happens.
Yeah, it's kind of like the pacing. Like it's like if you go to a play and individual scenes are great, but they're all really slow, or like one's really slow and one's really fast, then it kind of doesn't flow.
Right.
Whereas like I'm not accusing a conductor who doesn't specialize in structure to be getting these things wrong, but it's like if you're dwelling too much in the moment, this is kind of my personal perspective. If in some cases, as a conductor, if you dwell too much in the moment or don't get the pacing right, then it's just kind of, you go out of a performance and you're like, well, the whole wasn't greater than the sum of its parts. Like even if it seems great, like at least for me, I feel a little unsatisfied.
Right.
It's like it's like in a lot of music, you feel like in some ways the beginning is connected to the end.
Yeah.
It's like, so you can argue too that like that there's a comparison there between a conductor and like a director of a play or a director of a movie. Like the conductor in a way it's not just, it's like the conductor might not just shape how individual scenes in the movie look, but might shape how the scenes all fit together.
Right. So I kind of want to take this conversation in a different direction. I mean, still in the same realm of conducting, but you know, what kind of career prospects does a conducting master's student have? I mean, as a conductor, you know, you won't necessarily be like, I'm going to do everything, right? You tend to go into one area. And what would be your ideal choice?
Well, it's difficult because conducting is a competitive field. So sometimes, to some extent,
because there can only be one, right?
Yes, to some extent, you take what you can get. Like, I mean, because I also study musicology. At some point, I'm probably going to be teaching, but I'm also interested specifically in opera in particular, because it not only draws upon my skills and my experience playing the piano for this sort of thing, but there's something that I find really quite incredible about the experience of telling a story musically. Like it's like each person on stage might be a character, but in a way, like the orchestra is telling the story of all these characters.
Yeah.
And so, like setting the scene, it's like I guess as a conductor, there's nothing closer to actually directing a movie as directing a play in a way. But that doesn't mean that conductors, even as conductors who specialize, necessarily do just one thing.
Right. I mean, like this summer or the end of the summer, right before school starts again, you're gonna be conducting this ucdavis Summer Symphony, right? And I think we have some information about it because they should contact Jonathan in the case that they'd be interested in joining. And it's a free thing. No one has to like register or like pay to be a part of it, right?
Yes, exactly.
And also one of the major perks of it would be that you get to perform it in Jackson Hall.
It's yet to be finalized.
Yet to be finalized, but that's the hope.
Oh, that's the hope. I've got my fingers crossed. But it's going to be the first noon concert of the year. We have weekly noon concerts on Thursdays at ucdavis, and so it's Thursday, September 24th at noon, and we're going to be starting rehearsals from 7 to 9 p.m. on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I think the last Thursday of August.
So it'll be like a month of rehearsals.
Yeah,
on Tuesdays
it's about,
and
I
Thursdays?
think 3 to 4 weeks. I don't have my calendar etched in my brain, but we've got an exciting program lined up. We're going to do Glinka, Ruslan and Ludmilla Overture, the first movement of Grieg's Piano Concerto with Jeremiah Trujillo, who's another music grad student, a very, very gifted pianist, and then Dvorak Symphony No. 8 or Beethoven's First Symphony, depending on the forces that we have. The Dvorak's requires more people, so that's why we need to have even more.
So it depends on which instruments are signed up to join in Summer
a way,
Symphony?
yes.
I mean, which You can tell us now though, but which would be your ideal choice though?
Oh, Dvorak.
Dvorak 8?
Dvorak 8 is, from my violin playing days, I can't say I've ever had more fun playing a symphony.
Dvorak 8, yeah, that's a really, really great piece.
Yes.
Yeah, I really love playing that one. And I'm going to be playing in your summer symphony.
Yeah.
So, and I played in it last year, and I can attest to just how fun it really, really was.
Yeah.
And, you know, Jonathan is a really great conductor, and it was just Haydn the last year, so it's really exciting that you get to do, you're conducting the entire program this time, right?
Yes, I am.
Yeah, and you're taking the helm, and it's going to be your child this
Yes,
time,
it
right?
will.
Yeah.
It will.
A lot at stake, but
I'm also hoping, depending on interest, to organize additional days where we just like get people together and read through chamber music or standard orchestral repertoire,
it's
even
like
if
a
we don't
reading
have
orchestra.
everybody.
Yeah, no, that would be really, really fun. And I think there are a lot of people in the community who would
Yeah.
be interested in joining something like that. So we're pretty much at the end, you know? Yeah, I feel like that went by really quickly. And
Yeah.
you know, thanks so much for coming on the show. We
Thank
really
you.
liked having you. This is Jonathan Spatola-Knoll, a graduate student, getting his master's in conducting and a PhD in musicology at UcDavis. So you've been watching In the Studio. I'm Eunah Cho, and I hope you enjoyed this. You can find this show and other shows like it on dctv.davismedia.org, and you can just browse that site and you can find some other really cool interviews. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you next time. Bye.